Good evening and welcome. I'm Joan Savoy, and I welcome you on behalf of the League of Women Voters of Lafayette. The League is nonpartisan and nonprofit. It does not endorse or support candidates or parties. Since 1920, the League of Women Voters has worked to educate and inform voters. Membership is open to all men and women aged 16 and up. The Lafayette League encourages informed and active participation in government. Our members work to increase understanding of public policy issues and to influence public policy through education and advocacy. We're proud to have as this evening's moderator, Sally Donlin, Assistant Dean of the College of Liberal Arts of UL and a longtime member of the League. Please welcome Sally Donlin.
Good evening, and welcome to our candidate forum at the South Library. Tonight, we're offering the public a glimpse of the candidates for Lafayette City Council. We're delighted to have all candidates running in Districts 2 and 3 here for tonight's forum. The City Council District 4 candidates will not participate tonight due to an unexpected cancellation by candidate Nanette Cook because of an unexpected work conflict. League policies prohibit us from holding an empty chair forum where only one candidate for a contested seat is able to participate. The League is in the process of trying to reschedule that forum. First, some housekeeping. Please take this time to put your cell phones on silence, especially the candidates, for the length of the forum. Next, the format. The questions will be new to the candidates. They have not received them in advance. The questions are designed to give candidates an opportunity to express their positions on issues relevant to voters. Our process tonight will be to give each candidate in alphabetical order a minute to introduce themselves. We'll give them 2 minutes for closing remarks. In between the intro and the closing, we'll pose questions to each candidate in rotating order. Candidates are asked not to address each other directly, as this is not a debate but a forum. Answers will be limited to 1 minute each, strictly enforced by our timekeeper, Kathleen Espinoza. She will give candidates a 15-second warning, right, Kathleen? Okay. A 30-second warning, a 15-second warning, and then a time up, okay? Now, let's hear from our candidates. Please introduce yourselves, beginning with Bruce Conk.
Thank you, Sally. Thank you, Sally. Appreciate the opportunity. I am a native of Lafayette, and some of you with a long memory who have been around for a while may remember I used to report news on radio and television. But since 1980, I've owned and operated a number of small businesses. As far as the community service, I was on the Planning and Zoning Commission. I was chair when we adopted Plan Lafayette and also the Downtown Action Plan. Previously served on the council in 2004. I retired from the Lafayette Chamber of Commerce in 2014, elected to the current council in 2015, and my most significant achievement to date is that I led the fight to fix the charter, which is allowing the Lafayette City Council to exist for the first time in 24 years.
Thank you, Mr. Conk. Mr. Nakan?
My name is Andy Nakan. Thank you all for all being here tonight. I've been in Lafayette since 1957. I was educated at Our Lady of Fatima in UL. I finished with a degree in agriculture. My wife is Peggy Cormier. We've been married for 38 years, almost 39 now. I've been in the building industry for 43 years, whether working or selling building materials, presently working with Doug Ashley Building Materials. I served on the council from 2012 to 2015, enjoyed my service there, and that's basically what I've been doing all my life, is a life of service, whether it be in the public and working in my job in construction or through my church at St. Jules in Fatima. I wish to serve y'all even greater and even further, and it's just a pleasure to be here and serving people. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Nakan. Ms. Hebert?
Sure. First, thank you for hosting this event. Enjoy it every year. My name's Liz Hebert. I am the current councilwoman for District 8 here in Lafayette, wrapping up 4 years now. I've loved the experience. I'm hoping to be your city councilwoman for District 3. I'm married to Aaron Hebert. Coming up, our anniversary is this Saturday, so thank you for being patient with me. I've loved my time on the council. I'm originally from here, born and raised in Lafayette. I'd be remiss if I didn't say hello to my mother as well, who made time to come here. I've loved my experience. I've been accessible and approachable to people in my district. It's what I ran on for my first campaign, and also promised to make Lafayette a better place. And I was able to do so by getting over 30 bus stops adopted, reducing the amount that the taxpayers would have to pay, and then also establishing a safe exchange location at the police station, zero cost tax dollars, and brought down the amount of crimes associated to that by 29%. So thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Hebert. Dr. Noriega?
Hi, I'm Dr. James Noriega. Originally from the Morgan City area. Went to Nicholls State University, graduated from there in 91, I believe, and went into active duty Army. Was stationed at Fort Riley, Kansas for 2 years until I decided to go back to school, went to med school in Miami, Florida, did my residency in Oklahoma City, continued in the Army throughout my med school and residency program, finished as a captain. Got out of the Army in '99 when I started practice here. I've currently been in practice for 21 years right here in Lafayette, and love the town, and hoping to make a positive change. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Noriega. All right, we'll start with the first question. We'll go in the same order for this first question, so we'll start with Mr. Conk. What do you view as the biggest opportunity and the biggest challenge in the first year of the City of Lafayette having its own independent council?
One of the issues that we addressed when we fixed the charter that the voters approved in December of last year was to address the Lafayette utility system. It is our major asset. You as a community own the utility system, and for the first time in 24 years, we will have total oversight of that operation. It's significant that we keep it within the community's interest, because if nothing else, it contributes $23.5 million a year to the City of Lafayette General Fund. So I will focus on that and retaining that very powerful asset that we have acquired over probably 100 years. Other than that, we need to look at downtown Lafayette. It is in need of some tender, loving care, because it could be a true economic tool as we progress our community into the future.
Mr. Noriega?
With this new government coming in, we're definitely going to have to take a look at it and wrap our hands around it. We don't really know the whole process behind it yet, and this new council coming in will make those decisions. So we'll have to present ourselves with a new and expanded budget. We'll have to see what's going on. We'll have to find out where the money is going and where we need to spend it to address the priorities of the citizens in the city. And always we have to keep an eye on the fact that the tax base needs to make sure that it's spent where the citizens agree that it needs to be spent, on the things that it needs to be put toward. I know a priority in Lafayette is drainage, not only throughout the city, but also in downtown. I know personally know many business owners that are have conflict with what goes on there. So there's a lot to wrap our heads around, and a good place where we can need to learn how to put our money and deal with that. Thank you.
Ms. Hebert?
I'll start with opportunities. For me, the best opportunity of the challenge that we have ahead is allowing our constituents to have a better understanding of the budget and what the city pays for and what the parish pays for. That's going to be number one. And then also keeping the city funds in the city of Lafayette and keeping the parish paying for the parish responsibilities. I'd say our biggest challenge is going to be the two councils working together. Right now, we all work as one, as a 9-member council working together. But next, we need people in both the positions in the city and the parish to be people that can work with everyone and work together. That is going to be our biggest challenge. It cannot turn into an us versus them or a me versus you. We have to work together or nothing will get accomplished. So I would say that's the biggest challenge and one that I'm certainly up for. So thank you.
Well, I think probably the biggest challenge is going to just simply be the transition. We're going from one council to a two council, seeing what the division of money is going to be. And then once we figure out that, within the first year, I would like to try to address this flooding issue. That's one of my biggest priorities. That's one of the reasons I'm up here and taking time away from my practice, is to try to fix some of these flooding issues that we have. And it's been a slow process, and I'd like to see how we can speed it up to actually have something done within the first year.
Thank you. For this second round, we'll continue alphabetically, but we'll start with Mr. Nakam. What are your top priorities for the use of taxpayer dollars? Mr. Nakam.
Definitely, if you look at our priorities as governing body, it should always be infrastructure, which would be our utilities and our roads. It would be also going back to drainage. It would be public safety, which is police, fire, public health. These are the top priorities, and it should always be number one on the list, because once we have a handle on those, then the private sector has a chance to flourish in every other aspect of their life. If they can't have the drainage, if they can't have the roads, if they can't have the infrastructure, meaning utilities and water, if they can't have a safe place to live, what good is government? So we really have to focus on that and put those as our top priorities, no doubt, as a city. Keeping an eye that what we do here in the city also will affect the parish, especially when it comes to drainage.
Ms. Hebert?
Top priorities, of course, drainage is a big priority. That's something that I'm going to continue to work towards. We've been cleaning ditches and drains and under bridges since 2016. We are almost 85% complete with every single area in our district. We are currently, I was one of the authors of the resolution to dredge the Vermilion and work towards getting funding that is rightfully ours from the state level. That way we can move forward, and also being proactive and acquiring these permits. That way, once we get the results in December, we can move forward. Of course, roads, since I've been in office, been working hard to get roads overlaid, potholes filled immediately, and then making sure that our police officers, our sheriff's department, our marshals have everything they need. It's come to our attention that they are losing police officers to other forces, so currently working with the chief on that to be able to see where we can find funding in order to make it make more sense to keep our police officers here.
Dr. Noriega?
So I think that the number one priority is kind of a lump thing. It's citizen safety. And, you know, that encompasses almost everything, including the flooding, because those are dangerous events when they do happen, not only costly, but they are so dangerous. I've met with most of the police departments, police associations, and you know, they are concerned about the funding issues for their departments, and as you mentioned, the fact that we are losing officers at a rapid rate. And that's something we really don't want to see, because we're spending money to train these people, and they're going to a small town in Texas to make $70,000 instead of the $30,000 here. It's a big difference, and it makes a big difference in their lives, and we should be able to have that here in Lafayette. And then, of course, our infrastructure, our roads, our bridges, all the things that need to be repaired and need to be looked at. Thank you.
Mr. Conk?
Well, I think it's obvious drainage is the top of mind for everybody, but we also need to look, as has been pointed out, at recruiting and retaining our police. We, unbelievably, are the lowest paying municipality for police officers in the parish of Lafayette. That should not be the situation. Now, we have taken steps in this current council. We did create a senior corporal, which allows an officer who is quite possibly stuck in a corporal position for 20 years before he can actually rise to another level of pay, but this way they could get it halfway through that term. The other thing is, we did adopt a plan where we will provide automatic pay increases for police officers when it's triggered by a specific increase in sales taxes. And we're hoping that that first instance will happen next year, because sales taxes are on the rise. Thank you.
For the third round, we'll start with Ms. Hebert. How do you plan to address the I-49 connector plan? Do you support a path forward for construction of an elevated interstate through the city? Do you support an alternative connection for I-49, and why?
Big question for only short amount of time, but I'll do my best. I think it's continuing the work that we're already doing right now, working with the state level. I have an incredible working relationship with our current state legislators and being in constant contact with them on making sure those funds are allocated, attending the meetings, the community meetings, so you know exactly what the community is actually saying. Because you can sit here and think you know what they want until you go to the meetings and meet with them and hear what the people who attend these meetings have to say about what alternatives we should take, and meeting with the engineers, finding out what the engineers have to say is the right way to build the roads. So I think it's a lot about continuing that participation that we're already doing, I'm already doing, and encouraging to get as much funding from possible from the state level. So, and having those incredible relationships at the state level. That's key.
I'm sorry, Ms. Hebert, but the question was, do you support the moving a path forward for construction of the elevated interstate through the city, or an alternative
Oh, I'm sorry,
connection?
do I support it? Okay.
Yes.
So was not my attempt to get more time, but no, I do support it. But of course, it has to be done right. We need to make sure that it's not going to negatively impact the community that's going to be going through. So I know that we're in the middle of those stages of determining if that's going to be necessary or not. So I do support it, but a small asterisk, if it does not negatively impact an area.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Dr. Noriega.
So I have to admit, this is one of the areas that I am very strong on. I don't know what the existing plans are. But I can tell you that when I moved here in 1999, I bought a house in Dusant because I saw the city plans that was going to run a connector from I-10 to the I-49 to be. And I thought it would be very good to own property near there so that maybe my property value would go up. Of course, that never happened. That was 20-something years ago. So again, a lot of things, there's a lot of talk, a lot of things that we're wishing to get done, which we never actually see that come to fruition. And my personal belief that it should be an alternative route around Lafayette and not straight through the heart of it.
Mr. Conk.
I'm very intimately involved with the I-49 Lafayette connector. I'm a member of the community work group, which has overseen the planning process. And I will tell you that I favor I-49 Lafayette connector. I don't think it's the best option, but we have so much time and money invested, and we have made the effort to soften the impact as it traverses the city of Lafayette for 5 miles in length, 40 foot high. So what we have to be very cognizant of is to be context sensitive as we do the construction work. One thing that has occurred in recent weeks is that a new contract has been negotiated with the consultants so that they can address the impact of this monstrous piece of concrete and make certain it doesn't have a negative impact on the community. The other thing is taking the existing Evangeline Thruway and converting it into a parkway, something that will definitely be of economic value and aesthetic value for the city of Lafayette.
Mr. Nakam.
The I-49 connector is such an important roadway for this city. Anytime two interstates connect in a city, it becomes a beltway. It becomes very prosperous. Transportation, commerce, safety, evacuation route for people coming from the southern areas, from Morgan City. This is very important to have this. And obviously, the easiest money and best money spent, which we have to agree upon to get it from the federal government, we have to come up with a plan, would be an overpass through the city, over the existing Evangeline Thruway. And again, this would have to be done in a manner that would not affect people negatively. We would have to definitely take into consideration the businesses and the residents there. We all know there are some blighted areas in there. That would be probably an improvement over some of those areas that we have that are really in terrible condition. But those people that live there, that's their home. So we have to take care of them first, make sure that everything's done well.
Thank you. For the next round, we'll start with Dr. Noriega. The outgoing mayor-president engaged in discussions to sell or outsource the management of LUS to a private entity. What are your thoughts about the public utility, and how do you feel about engaging with private organizations to either manage it or take ownership of it?
Well, I think that's a pretty tough question. Some people question whether or not the government should have gotten into a private business to begin with. And I'm one of those that kind of question that as well. I've seen all kinds of numbers come from LUS, and I don't know which ones to believe. So I would like to see a lot of the true numbers from LUS. So I think it probably should stay in the city hands at this point. But again, I think we need to see the true numbers and exactly what the LUS is doing and where their money is coming in and how it's being spent. Thank you.
Mr. Conk.
I led the fight to successfully defeat the effort to provide a third-party management of the Lafayette utility system. The Lafayette utility system has existed since the late 1890s. It's embedded in our community. It's a great asset for our community. One of the things we did when we fixed the charter and the voters approved is that we removed a loophole that would have allowed third-party management contracts without a vote of the people. We have changed that. Beginning in 2020, if there's any effort, and in all probability I would not support it, but if there's any effort to provide third-party management of our utility system, it will have to go to the vote of the people.
Mr. Nakan.
Well, it's been known as the cash cow, and I have to agree with that. And it's very well managed. I really have no issues with LUS. In fact, I think it's a very reliable source for the people here in Lafayette. And the fact that the citizens own it is a wonderful thing. This product they put out there is by far the best in the state. And it probably had the least problems, the quickest service calls, and least time down when power goes down. Tremendous asset to this city. One thing about this LUS business we have, though, and it's possible that some of the service work, the line work, could possibly be bid out to private contractors. And that way save the city or the LUS the expense of workers, salaries, benefits, retirement. Those are things we could look at to make the LUS more profitable, where it's not being taken directly out of their pocket. It's always great to have staff on hand because they react so well, though.
Ms. Hebert.
Yes, I was also one of the ones who fought to not have LUS either be sold or mismanaged or whatever the intention was of the administration. As someone who travels often for work and rely on internet service to communicate with my physicians and of course family back home, as I can tell you what we have in Lafayette is a jewel. We are blessed to have LUS and the service and the fiber that we have here. And working alongside LUS and LUS Fiber, we have incredible employees work for them. So we are very lucky to have this resource. But I will say I'm also very happy that we have also separated and have different directors for LUS and LUS Fiber to create more oversight of what we have now. Because they are such large entities, they deserve to have two different directors in those positions. So I will say I am happy about that, and I would not support remanaging or selling of our LUS system because of the jewel that it is in our community and that we are so lucky to have it.
Thank you. Okay, for the next round, we're back to Mr. Conk. We'll begin with Mr. Conk again. What role should the City Council play in further development of downtown Lafayette and the oil center?
One of the main tools that's available to us to accomplish that is the opportunity zones that was introduced by Congress a couple of years ago and is just being implemented in Lafayette as we speak. The oil center is one of the opportunity zones. Another opportunity zone is downtown Lafayette. Another one is an area just north of downtown. So to be able to take advantage of private investment, investors who are willing to come into a specific geographic area and improve the area, financially benefit both themselves and the community, that's the way to go. And downtown Lafayette, I guess to the amazement of everybody, in the last 2 years, after years and years and years of effort, has really begun to blossom. And if we could connect downtown Lafayette, UL campus, and the oil center, that would be an accomplishment.
Mr. Nakam.
These have always been tremendous areas for the city of Lafayette. Growing up here and living off of South College Road, I well remember the development of the oil center. I've been off of South College since 1957, and the oil center was hardly there. To make sure that this and the downtown area, which also I remember going there quite often, the Jefferson Theater, Abdallas, Hyman's, we lived there. That was the center of the heart of the city, those two areas. We need to make sure that we give those businesses all that they need to flourish, make sure they have the opportunities to develop, make sure that we have a code system that works well with them to enable them and not cost them. And the taxes that are dedicated to those areas, we may make sure they stay in place and are used properly to support those areas and give them what they need.
Ms. Hebert.
I'm a big supporter of downtown and the oil center. I have friends that are coming up and becoming business owners themselves. So watching them flourish and they're opening their restaurants, their shops, their bars, their daytime businesses there. Friends that are opening residential development downtown. These are all big keys for what we need to take our community to the next level. Studies have shown that a community with a thriving downtown is a thriving community. So the ways I've supported them in the past so far, the last 4 years, have been things like opportunity zones, things like helping them with the codes to make them places that developers will want to come here and make it easy to develop. And then the next, as we've talked about before, is the safety factor. We have the police station going downtown as well to help keep our downtown safe, not just during the day, but also after hours as well. So it could be an entertainment area for all. So I definitely support any development.
And Dr. Noriega.
I too absolutely support the development of downtown and the oil center. I think that we need to look at incentives for people to come into the existing buildings instead of building new ones. You know, part of our property is, our worth is decreasing because they're building new buildings, they're building them cheaper, and the existing structures aren't retaining their value. So I think if we can put people into some of these deteriorating buildings and have them renovate them, not only would it increase downtown and revitalize downtown, but it would also help with our property values.
Okay, for the next round, we'll start with Mr. Nakam. Would you support or oppose a proposal to relocate the Alfred Mouton statue from its location to a museum? And please briefly explain your position.
I think the Alfred Mouton statue is very representative of a family that has supported the growth of Lafayette. He gave a lot back to this city. The fact that he served in a time in a war does not represent what his family and his people gave back to this city. I do not support moving the statue. I think it's an iconic statue for the city of Lafayette when you come in there. It's a beautiful statue. I love going through there and I see it. And to be honest with you, it has never, that I know of, offended anyone that I spoke with, my friends, whether it be in the black community or whoever. They have not ever brought it up as a problem until recently. So as far as the statue goes, I'm in support of leaving it there. I think the Mouton family gave a lot back to the city. I think they mean a lot to the city. I see no problem with it.
Ms. Hebert.
I think that's a really important conversation, more so about how we are communicating with the public. Because when we continue to bring up this topic of whether or not to locate or relocate the statue is misleading the public into believing that's something that we can actually do. We have had multiple attorneys, our LCG attorneys, other attorneys I've reached out to saying, is this something that we can even do? And every single one, whether they're conservative, liberal, whatever, all say, according to the laws that are in place protecting the statute, it's not going anywhere. And it's very, very clear of that. Whether my personal opinion, your personal opinion, our attorney's personal opinion say otherwise. And I think when we continue to bring this up as an option, it is misleading our public into believing that this can be done and then further dividing our community into a black, a white, a this or a that. So I think that we need to make sure the public is aware and that they have the truth.
Dr. Noriega.
Yeah, I agree that, I think the nationwide movement to move statues is more divisive than anything. It throws us into two groups. I don't see color in my eyes. I think it needs to stay exactly where it's at. I don't think it represents anything bad, so I would definitely not move it.
And Mr. Conk.
I grew up literally in the shadow of that statue in downtown Lafayette. I grew up 4 blocks away from it. And I also grew up in a mixed-race neighborhood. And during the entire time in the 50s, when I was in that neighborhood and into the 60s, never once was the subject brought up as to whether or not it was offensive to a particular race. So that's one issue. The other issue is, as Liz has pointed out, are the legal issues. There is a court decision in play today that says you may not relocate the statue. So for us to even consider that as a possibility, we also have to consider the possibility of some very expensive litigation to make that happen or not happen.
All right, we have time for another round before we go to closing remarks. So this time, let's start with Ms. Hebert, okay?
First.
Yes. Should the city or the parish shoulder the cost of upgrading sewer infrastructure in the urban core?
I say no. I say that we need to keep our message consistent. We can't allow one group to have to bear or incur the cost of subsurface drainage for all, when right now what we require through the UDC is you take care of your own and improve your own footprint. Now, I've worked out, in working with developers and neighborhoods, a lot of the times, a lot of my developers will say, I want to be a good neighbor. I want to do more. I want to go above and beyond. And that's fantastic. So I will certainly not say no to require having a developer do more to go above and beyond to improve their footprint nearby. But to require them to improve a whole area is, to me, not the right thing to do.
Okay, so, I'm sorry, but to be clear, the question is, should the city or the parish shoulder the cost of upgrading sewer infrastructure? So just to be clear.
Okay, sorry about that. I think it depends on the area that it is in.
Okay.
So if city taking care of its city responsibilities, parish picking up their part. Thank you.
Thank you. Dr. Noriega?
I mean, I agree that the city should take care of the city, parish should take care of the parish. However, we've seen some of the budget, and it appears the parish is going to have a very small budget, and it's going to be very tough for them to operate within that budget. So they may need a little help, and definitely we don't want sewer problems anywhere in our parish or in our city. So I would say if they needed help, I would be one out there to offer them help from some of the city money just to prevent a medical disaster, a social disaster.
I'm going to back up and ask the question again, because I think maybe I was misleading in this. The question is, should the city or the parish shoulder the cost of upgrading sewer infrastructure in the urban core? So would you like to add something? In other words, we're not talking about helping the parish, we're talking about what happens in the urban core.
Downtown. The city.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you, sorry about that. Well, no, but we'll get the guys a chance to say, Mr. Conk.
Well, the very fact that you identify the urban core, it's a city of Lafayette responsibility. And interestingly enough, as we discuss the potential for development in downtown Lafayette, our biggest challenge, believe it or not, is to be able to accommodate the number of flushing toilets. And that's a matter of basic infrastructure. We have to make some significant improvements, and we have allocated over $7 million initially to begin an upgrade of the system so that we can move, for lack of a better word, the product from one point to another. And we are expecting that to happen and increase significantly in the next 3 to 4 years. But it is delaying development, because developers come to us and we tell them, well, you really can't do this project because we can't provide you with adequate sewage treatment.
Thank you. Mr. Nakan?
That's important to move that product. We sure don't want it coming back on us.
No.
You know, because that's not a pretty sight. It's very important that we, as an urban area, focus on upgrades, because in areas such as downtown, it's been 75 years since anything's been done there as far as sewer. So yeah, we're going to have to put some money into this. We're going to have to definitely get our hands dirty, so to speak. A plumber wouldn't like that, but we do need to also remember that when we get entangled with this, that there'll be other sources of revenue. We can go back to the federal government for some grants. We can go on the state level and look for monies. There's sources out there. We need to talk to our legislators in Washington, make sure we get the help to do this, because as a city, we can't do it by ourselves. For us to foot the bill by ourselves, it's impossible. It's going to be too much money. But I think we need to look for other sources, and it needs to be addressed.
Well, we're still doing great on time. Would y'all like to take another question? Okay. There you go. Okay, so we'll start. So we may as well keep going, right? Okay. So we're going to start with Dr. Noriega this time, okay? Would you support an effort by the state legislature to allow municipalities to set their own minimum wage? And would you consider raising Lafayette's minimum wage above the federal minimum?
So I think I would agree that, yes, we should be able to set our own minimum wage in our city. You know, we know what it costs to live here, as long as it doesn't go below the federal wage. I know there's a lot of talk about a $15 minimum wage. I think in a city like this, that would be almost impossible for businesses to provide. And I think every time you raise the minimum wage, all it does is really hurt the people on the lower end, because, you know, you go buy a McDonald's meal, and it always corresponds to the minimum wage of that city. So you're going to pay 1 hour of work for your lunch. And it's like that everywhere. It changes everywhere. Where you go places where there's higher minimum wage, McDonald's costs more. Thank you.
Okay, so then we'll go back to Mr. Conk.
I will admit that I've never considered that as an issue, that it would come up before the Lafayette City or the Parish Council, but I would favor it because of one very important reason. I do not favor centralized government in Baton Rouge telling us what to do on the local level. If we have the opportunity to make those decisions, and if it involves minimum wage, then let's take that opportunity and identify the level of the wages based on the local economy and how much does it cost to live within the city of Lafayette. Now, that's a decision. You know, we spoke earlier about the ability for the city and the parish council to work together. If we had the opportunity to set a minimum wage, you don't do it in isolation. You don't do it as a city council, and then the parish doesn't do anything. So it has to be a cooperative effort on both the councils and with the other 5 municipalities.
Mr. Nakan.
Minimum wage is what it is, minimum wage. You start out at a job at minimum wage. You go work as a teenager at a minimum wage. You don't raise a family at minimum wage. You better yourself. You go out and get an education. You get job experience. You promote yourself. You do better at your workplace. Minimum wage is not meant for a man raising 4 kids. Minimum wage is meant for a child learning where he's going to go in life. So to sit here and say a government's going to force minimum wage on private sector business that's going to hurt them and drive jobs away is difficult to put on the private sector. I don't support any government forcing minimum wage on somebody else. I agree with the minimum wage, but to sit there and arbitrarily raise it, I think it's not right. I think the worker needs to earn the minimum wage, and I think the business needs to grant it. If the business is not willing to pay higher wages to somebody, they're going to find another job. Believe me, I experience that all the time. I see that within my own company. It happens. You know, if people aren't making enough, they'll go somewhere else. Thank you.
Ms. Hebert.
You certainly stumped me there, because that's not something that we've considered here at the local level before. But what an interesting thought of having more control at our local level of what we can and can't afford to pay, rather than just leaving it in Baton Rouge or leaving it at the federal level to make them decide on what we can and can't do. But I think that we especially have to be very mindful of what our local business leaders and our local businesses, owners can afford. Coming from a family of, my father was a local business owner, all of my brothers own their own businesses. My husband is a small business owner who owns a payroll company who deals with this day in and day out. I am not an entrepreneur myself, but I understand personally the efforts of a small business and what it takes to afford to pay your people and pay your people well. So I think it would be I think there would be pros and cons on whether or not we would do it at the local level, but obviously there would need to be a lot more discussion.
Okay. All right, let's see. I think we can do one more. Let's see. This is a good one. I know, y'all are just great. Okay, so. That's right. Do we have a write-in? Okay.
Pop culture entertainment.
And who did we start with last time? Y'all threw me off.
Were you first?
Okay.
This one, or were you first?
Okay, so we're going to start with Mr. Nockamp. What is the most critical step that can be taken to build trust in the new city council?
Repeat that, please.
What is the most critical step that can be taken to build trust in the new city council?
Show responsibility. Show some cooperation. Assert yourself and show some openness in the government. Be honest with the people. Let them speak. Let them hear their voice. Go out there and talk with them. Shake hands. Say, you're welcome. This is your government. This is not my government. This is your government. You need to come here and give me your hand. You need to tell me what you need. Let's put our heads together and come up with solutions. The private sector has many solutions for problems we have. We have to listen to that. We're not the know-all, end-all, and we never will be. Government is not meant to be that way. Government is other people, by the people, and for the people. We're here because of the people, and that needs to be brought forth. And that's the only way we're going to earn trust and respect with the local level, with our people here.
Okay. Ms. Hebert?
Sure. I'm thrilled that you asked this question because this is something that I'm extremely passionate about, and exactly what I ran on in 2015 was being accessible and approachable to the people in my district. And I'm a big believer in communication, transparency, meeting and being out in the public, because whether it's through having town hall meetings or sending out monthly email newsletter, which I do every month, phone calls, return emails within 24 hours, that is what gains people's trust. We may not agree together 100% of the time on every single thing. I don't agree with my sweet husband 100% of the time, and I don't think any of us agree with each other 100% of the time, but it's communicating with people and being 100% transparent on why you do something and why you vote a certain way, and getting the feedback from the community on that particular issue you're voting on, and then being educated on that issue when you vote. So I think 100% is about communication, is about transparency, and remaining involved in the community.
Dr. Noriega?
Well, like Andy said, this is your government. It's, we're elected by you, we're paid by you. So you, the people, should have access to everything we do because we work for you. We should be completely transparent in everything we do. Okay? Whether that's, how we vote or how we argue, everything should be available on our website for you to come and look at. Okay? The transparency is just where we're going to gain the trust back of the people, because again, this is your government. It's not mine. I'm working for you. I'm serving you. So if I ask one of my employees what they're doing, I need to know. Well, now I'm your employee. So complete transparency.
And Mr. Conk?
We obviously need community involvement, we need community buy-in, we need community participation. And a good example of how we're already encouraging that type of activity is the Lafayette utility system is currently putting together the Integrated Resource Plan, which is a master plan for the next 4 years of operations by LUS for our community. We are going to be conducting citizen meetings to get input on what they expect of their utility system. And the other thing that most people don't appreciate what we do at the City Parish Council is once a month, we have public comment section at the beginning of our agenda. It is the opportunity for anybody and everybody to come before the council and discuss any item that is not on that night's agenda. So we are made aware of what is of concern to the community. And I would certainly encourage that we continue to do that in the future.
Okay, thank you. We have the final question. Are you ready? Okay. Do you support, and we'll start with Ms. Hebert. Do you support or oppose the investments in the university corridor that have been pursued by the current mayor-president? Do you support or oppose the investments in the university corridor that have been pursued by the current mayor-president? Ms. Hebert?
Sure, I support beautifying all of our corridors, not just the university corridor. I think it doesn't need to stop there. I feel like it's probably taken too long, and we've done too many community studies and inputs and impact, and it's just time to beautify every single one of our corridors, not just the university one. The one that would lead mostly into my district would be the Ambassador Extension leading into that. We've got to have more areas where we have visitors, tourists coming in, possible students coming in. So it doesn't need to just stop there. It needs to be every single corridor into our city. So yes, I do support it.
Okay, thank
Yes.
you. Dr. Noriega.
Yes, one of the initial things that moved me to run is, driving down Johnson Street, seeing all the trash on the side of the roads, seeing how our maintenance vehicles take their lawnmowers and just run over the trash instead of picking it up. We have very simple solutions to beautifying our city, which is real simple. It's don't do that anymore. Who's in charge of cutting the grass? It's a simple process. You wouldn't run over paper cups in your yard. Don't do it in my city. Not if I'm paying you for it. So yes, I think that beautification of our city and the university corridor as one of them is something that we absolutely need to do. But I don't think we're going to have to spend a whole lot of money to make it a whole lot more beautiful very easily. Thank you.
Mr. Conk.
Having traveled extensively throughout the country, your first impression is always when you enter a community. Imagine coming down I-10 and entering Lafayette as a gateway through Ambassador Caffrey, University Avenue. It's not pretty. We need to have a more aesthetically pleasing entrance to the city of Lafayette. The first step, and we have made the financial commitments to it, is the university gateway as proposed by not only the current mayor-president, but by the Durrell administration in the past. The other issue that we need to address as part of that particular project is the revitalization of the Four Corners area. We are awfully close to sealing the contract with HRI to redo that entire Les Pay Hotel, that attractive part of town, and the old Coca-Cola bottling company into a low-income artist housing development.
Mr. Nakam.
Beautification. I wish the government would pay for mine. I could use a little bit of that. Very important for the city that when you come in, it looks nice. It's very important that it looks clean. And it's very important the city keeps the infrastructure straight on these areas coming in. And that's the priority for the government to do. And I do support the beautification of university. However, we have to keep in mind that along university, there's a lot of private ownership. We have to instill some incentive in these people to improve what they have, to maintain what they have, whether it be tax incentives or something that they can spend extra money. But as far as for government to invest in those private business to improve it, well, then they're going to go to your house and improve your house, and your house and improve your house, and your house and improve your house. Can we do that? No. So we're going to have to focus on what we can do as a governing body to make it pretty, and then hope that in a partnership with the private sector, they will take pride in fixing it up and doing it what's right, because they live there. That's their front door. You'd think they would make it nice. Thank you.
Thank you, candidates. We have reached the point, I know you can breathe a sigh of relief, okay? We have reached the point in the forum when the candidates will each make a closing statement. Candidates will have 2 minutes. We will hear from the candidates in reverse alphabetical order, which means that we will start with you, Dr. Noriega.
So my ideal in Lafayette is making this a city where everybody can live their own American dream. Our dreams, our American dreams, aren't made in Washington, D.C. They're not made in Baton Rouge. They're made here. They're made by the local government. They're made given the opportunity by the local government. Making the American dream takes hard work. It takes blood. It takes sweat. It takes tears. But if you don't have a city that you can perform that in, you're going to move if you really want to have your own American dream. How many people do we have exiting Lafayette? How many people do we have exiting Louisiana? I'm sick and tired of waking up every morning and seeing Louisiana as number 49, number 50. I'm not going to stand for it anymore. That is my goal. Let's make Lafayette great. Let's make Lafayette the model city for every other city in Louisiana, and let's pick Louisiana up way higher than the 50th percentile. Thank you.
Ms. Hebert?
Sure. The last 4 years have been incredible 4 years. I've been able to accomplish a lot in improving our community, developing that transparency, developing that trust with my constituents, and communication, involvement, and engagement. I look forward to having another 4 years because we are about to embark on a very difficult journey, and that requires experience. I'm proud of the work that we've accomplished so far. I've enjoyed helping my district, not just the residents, but the business owners within our district, because the district is in, a good split of residential and commercial, and helping them be a part of the community, feel more involved, feel like they have somebody on their side getting something accomplished for them, whether it's part of something I can control or something at the state level or someone at the federal level they need to get in charge with. They know that if they come to me, I will help them resolve the problem. Even if it's not in my jurisdiction, I will help them find who can solve that problem. So it's continuing those efforts of fixing the problems that we have out there. Have we fixed everything in 4 years? No, we have not. We still have a long ways to go. We will continue to have a long ways to go. And I look forward to that challenge. So thank you all.
Mr. Naquin?
We're not a big parish. We are a large city within a small parish. We have a lot of people here that are passionate and care. I think as a councilman, my job will be to sit here and justify what we do as a government. We're going to have to sit here and make sure that we do what's right for those people here that are so passionate and care so much. And it goes from top to bottom. I don't care if it's from the lowliest home to the richest house. Everybody needs to have a stake in this. Everybody needs to understand they have to care. I drive around, and I drive every day through the city all over. In some areas, people take such pride in what they have. They clean their ditches. They make things. They care about what they have. Other areas, you have people that ditches overgrown. Their water won't drain because they had their property so blocked up. But they don't care about the guy down the road whose water's backing up on them. We need to instill this in people, that they need to know that they need to have a hand in this, that we all have to work together. And they're only going to get that is if we have a respectable, honest government. And it's going to have to be open and honest. The priorities are going to have to come first. I call it the meat and potatoes. If we take care of the meat and potatoes in government, then the whipped cream and the pie can come later. But we have to get the meat and potatoes. You don't feed your kids whipped cream and pie and send them to bed. You take care of what they have to take care of first, the most important things. And then you make sure they brush their teeth, too. So as a government, we have to make sure that we're on top of all this and bring this forward and out of the people. And God, I love the city. You know, I've been here for so long, and it's my home. I grew up here. My wife grew up here. I married her, promised her the moon and stars, and moved the 3 houses down from where she grew up. She's been on the same street all her life, you know, so she's got to love it. And I hope she loves me. Y'all take care. Thank you.
Mr. Conk?
One of the proudest statements I think that I can make after 3.5 years on the council is I made a promise in the election campaign, and I kept that promise. I led the fight to bring self-government back to the city of Lafayette the first time since 1996. What does that do? It gives the city control over city tax dollars. It gives the city continued control and complete responsibility for the Lafayette utility system. And as far as LUS is concerned, we will keep LUS as a community asset, because now any effort to outsource management of the LUS will have to go to the voters. So we have retained that autonomy for the city of Lafayette. The other subject that's come up quite often during this conversation tonight has been drainage. If the voters of Lafayette Parish on October 12 approve a transfer of $8 million from the parish library system to drainage infrastructure, we will have repurposed $20 million over the last 3.5 years to address drainage. As Liz mentioned earlier, she and I, along with some other council members, co-authored a resolution which supports the dredging of the Vermilion River. But more important, everybody wants to dredge the river. We have identified and committed to the fact that if the feds don't do it, we'll do it. In fact, today, we actually discussed putting into a reserve fund the dollars that are necessary to do that. As far as being responsive, as an elected official, it's very important that you communicate and you listen to your constituency. I have a great deal of pride in that even at my age, I have some mastery of social media. And I have proven that to be a valuable tool in my hearing from the constituents and responding and replying to their concerns. So I hope to continue that practice.
Thank you, candidates. Y'all have been great. And good luck with your campaigns. We hope you feel that you can make a more informed decision about which city council candidate meets your expectations. Voting will take place on October 12th. The League of Women Voters of Lafayette also has a voter guide available on our website, www.lwv-lafayette.org. Thanks for watching, and we hope you'll be able to join us for our upcoming forums. Thanks again to our timekeeper, the candidates, the League Voter Services Committee, the South Regional Library, and AOC Community Media. Good night.